Hey, this is Danielle here from Black Business Boom. I am here once again at Hippie Radio, and we're going to be talking some more about Black-owned businesses today. And I'm excited, super excited, because I have a guest here. Hey, we got Christie Pruitt Haynes here in the building with us, and so she's going to be really giving us some great information about what she does and how she helps Black-owned businesses, and then also what Black-owned businesses can do to help themselves.
Yes.
So I am excited. Christie, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Tell me exactly what your title is and what it is that you do.
I feel like I do a little bit of everything at times. So I guess my official title is I am a speaker, coach, and consultant with Christie Pruitt Haynes Consulting. So I had to come up with a name I knew I would never forget, make it something that I'd always be able to tell people about. But I work with organizations and individuals, particularly women-owned and minority-owned companies, to help them maximize opportunities and take advantage of all the opportunities that present themselves within their current organizations. And in doing that, probably about 75% of the clients that I work with are actually entrepreneurs. So they are at various phases of their business. They are either currently working in their 9-to-5 and thinking about transitioning out, or they've already done so and figuring out ways to scale their business and make sure that they are as effective and efficient as possible.
That is fantastic, and that is definitely much needed. So I know a lot of us, so I'm one of those folks that fall into that category of like, I'm working this job, which is why I'm just rolling in here, running in here to do this show, because I'm coming from off the road in my day job, but I have this dream and this goal of building this business and scaling it. So what type of advice, of course, everybody's situation is very individual, and,
yes.
and I'm sure there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but if there was one thing that you could say that every entrepreneur that wants to transition from being a full-time employee and a part-time entrepreneur to a full-time entrepreneur, what advice would you give them?
I think the number one thing to keep in mind, and as you said, there's no one size fits all, but I think there's some generalities that will really help. So to me, the most important thing to do is to have a very clear picture of what it is you want to do. A lot of entrepreneurs, and especially when people are just starting out, you want to say yes to everything. Every potential customer who comes to you, it's, oh, yes, I can do that for you. So, for example, if you're a baker, it may be, yes, I can make this wedding cake. And then it's, well, sure, I can make these cookies. And you keep going down the line, and by the end, you're making dog treats for somebody, which is so far from where you started. And you end up spreading yourself really thin. And what it actually does is dilutes the brand, and it makes it so where people don't know what to reach out to you for, because you've now become this jack of all trades, master of none. So it's critical to have a very clear picture on what you do, to know what that X on the treasure map, if you will, is for you, so you can stay true to that, stay true to your brand, stay true to your ideal customer base, and then grow from there.
I think that's fantastic, and I think a lot of us have been down that.
Yes, I have done it. This is me preaching to the choir. When I started my business, it was, oh, sure, I can do that, and yes, I can write a resume for you, and yes, I can coach on this, and at the end of the day, I was exhausted, and I wasn't focusing on what I was best at, and people didn't know what to reach out to me for.
Yep. I find that folks are like, well, what do you do, Danielle? And I'm like,
exactly.
Okay, next year I'm staying. This is what I do.
Yes,
I got
stay
this
in your
out.
lane.
Like, that's all I do. I have an app. That's what I do.
Yes.
But so another thing that I wanted us to talk about is something that we kind of talked about on Facebook the other day about getting paid for what it is that you do, right?
Yes.
So a lot of times starting out, we're like, oh, I'll do it for free, or I'll discount, or I'll, and I think also, like for me, I want to help people, and it's part of my passion to help people, but then you end up selling yourself short a lot of times when you're trying to build a business and you're not charging, or you're not charging what you should be charging.
And I'd say often, passion is wonderful, wanting to help people is wonderful, that doesn't pay your bills. and the bills are going to keep rolling in, and there's only so much exposure that you need, because people are quick to say, oh, come and speak to this organization because it's going to be great exposure. And you get there and there are 5 people in the audience, and they're not even people that would be typically in your target market.
Yep.
Exactly. And you're still spending the same amount of time preparing and driving there and all of that, and you honestly have nothing to show for it. So I fully understand that in the beginning, it may be harder to capitalize on all of your gifts. It may be a little bit harder to reach your desired customer. And if you're going to do things for exposure, make sure they're things that will actually pay off. So for example, a big part of my business is public speaking, and I'm a paid speaker. There are only so many times that I'm going to do free speaking engagements, and I have a certain number of those I will do in my head. And I know per year, I'm only going to do this number, and I'm going to do them for these types of organizations because that means something to me. But for everybody else, you have to pay because this is what I do for a living. But one sort of time that I veered away from that was there was an organization. It was a very large organization. Their corporate headquarters are here in Nashville. And I knew going into them would open up so many doors. So I said, I will come and conduct this training session for you for free one time. I made it a training session that I'd already done before, so I already had the material. Exactly. It was a really low entry point for me. It was really easy to do. But in doing that, I made sure there were going to be decision makers in the audience. I specified I wanted the head of HR there, I wanted the head of their training department, and I wanted the head of their marketing department in the audience because I knew those would be my potential customers. And delivered the training. It was wonderful. Since then, they've come back to me for 5 additional paid engagements. So for me, that became a marketing expense. I gave away that time because I could consider this is my marketing, and this is a way to do marketing without me actually spending money out of pocket. So it made sense only because I knew it would pay off in the future.
Yep. And I think so. One of my big things, and I talk about on the show every week, pretty much is digital marketing and ways to use digital marketing. So I think a lot of times we're doing these things for exposure. We're not doing anything to capture potential customers, right? And so it's like, even if you have 1,000 people in the audience, if you didn't do anything to get them in touch with them or to get their emails or to get their phone numbers or to connect with them on social media, you've just talked to 1,000 people. And now,
for one time.
Exactly. And you're not guaranteed that you're able to get back in touch with them. So what are some methods that you use just in general to ensure that you're able to get back in touch with and follow up with folks?
Yes. So technology has become your best friend in this regard. Anytime I'm giving a speech or conducting a training, I make sure that, and you can use sort of the text to website sort of things where you get a 5-digit code and you can tell everybody in the audience, pull out your smartphone, text this word to these 5 numbers, and that automatically gets people into my sales funnel. That connects them to my website, that gives me access to their email address. If you're not that advanced and you don't want to do that, if you have a handout, just have people on the bottom of that write down your name and email address, but make sure you're doing something to capture that information and use your content over and over again. I record most of my speaking engagements. I can then use pieces of that on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever other platform is out there. So I still have content that I can engage my audience with that's free. I'm not having to recreate the wheel. So I'm making sure that there's something that I can repurpose and reuse to, again, have those touch points with potential customers.
Oh, I love it. Like, I'm so happy you said that because it's like of the things that I'm like, I did a presentation Wednesday night. And I talked about your sales funnel and how to generate leads and how to nurture those leads, right? And it's like all the things you just said.
Well, thank you.
And so I'm always happy when I'm like, people are doing this. Like, our people are doing it because I feel like we are missing it a lot of times. And we're just like, I'm on Facebook. I got a Facebook page. I'm posting about my products. And I'm like, that's not how you get sales, right?
No.
That's how you have to generate leads. You have to nurture those leads. And then a portion of those will turn into a sale.
Exactly.
And we're just like, I'm about to push this product, I'm about to push this service, and hope there's some folks get it. And that's just not how it works. And so
it's not.
I really am like so excited when other people are pushing the same message and we can get that out there, because I'm like, we are just behind when it comes to technology and using a lot of that technology.
Yes.
I mean, it's so easy, especially if you're speaking in public, right? And even if you're just at a networking event and you're like, hey, text this keyword to this number, and like I did it at my presentation the other day. I said text business to, I think, 33777 or whatever my number is. And it replies back. It says, hey, I want to offer you a free ebook. So now I've given them a lead magnet, right? So now they have an incentive to reply with their email address. Give me your email address and I'm going to send you an ebook. Oh, yeah. And what's your first name so I can personalize it for you, right? So now it's going to automatically send them to my MailChimp. It's going to automatically nurture that lead by sending a thank you. Thanks so much for attending. I look forward to talking to you, and I'm going to send you some more marketing tips down the line, right? So I'm setting them up for them to know you're going to hear from me again, right? And giving them something that they would want, not just what I want to give them.
You're providing value from the very beginning, as opposed to just selling to them, because we all hate being sold to.
We do.
So you have to be a little creative in the way that you do it. If I just come to you on the street and say, hey, do you need a coach? Chances are you're going to say no. But if I first send you an email with some information on top 5 ways to improve your communication, and then I send you something else on how to move your career forward, or whatever it might be, something that's going to add value to your day where you don't have to go and Google these tips. By the time I actually say, okay, now I want you to pay me money for my services, you already trust me. You already believe I bring value to your life. I've already gone through that process, so it becomes a much easier sale.
And you've established yourself as the expert,
exactly.
right? So now I know you know something that I don't know, because you gave me some tips that helped me, and I didn't know this. So you know something I don't know. I very well may need you.
Yes, and psychologically, people then feel a little beholden to you. Once I've given you something, even though I didn't say it was an exchange, there's something in the back of your head that says, you know, Christie already gave me A, B, and C. So the only thing she's asking for is this. I should provide that to her. I should give that to her. So
at least take the time to listen to you know what she has to say.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So as we go into the new year, and again, there's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to push Black-owned businesses to really embrace these processes and get these processes in place. And so, but another thing I think is very important is to have a coach, or at least to have a community, right? And so I know you are an advisor at the Entrepreneur Center here. And then even myself, I signed up, I did a coaching session with you. And I was like blown away. I'm like, I needed this, you know, like it's so important just to have 20 minutes even sometimes to just be like, I got this idea, or I want to do this. Because you're just in your own head a lot of times trying to figure all these things out. So let's talk about kind of the importance of that, and the importance of a coach or someone, at least in a community, to hold you accountable or at least give you advisement.
Yes. So a couple of thoughts there. First and foremost, I think being a coach is wonderful. Having a coach is wonderful. For several reasons, though, that may not be for everybody. So if that's not the path you choose, I say first and foremost, start with what I call your personal board of directors. So for any business idea that I have a group of about 5 to 7 people that I'll just shoot out a quick email. Here's what I'm thinking. Poke holes in it. Tell me what I'm missing. Tell me why this won't work. Tell me why you think this is the best idea you've ever heard. Whatever it may be. make sure those individuals are first and foremost people who will be honest with you, because you don't just want a bunch of yes men. Oh, Christie, yes, that's great. Obviously, I think you should try and place a billboard on the moon, because that's how you're going to get customers. You know, you don't need those people, but you need people who will be honest with you and who excel in different areas. So I know what I'm good at, but I know where my weaknesses are. So I look for people who can fill in those areas so they can look for the problems and look for the potential issues that I may not see. And I run everything past them. I still have the final say because it's my business, but I need the input from I need that diversity of thought. And then having a coach or a mentor, whichever path you choose to take, someone who can listen to your ideas, they know what you're good at, they know what you're working towards, and then they can help fill in some of those areas that either you haven't thought of or just offer a different perspective, because everybody sees a product or a service a little differently. So I can think, from my vantage point, this is the best thing ever. But then I can say, hey, Danielle, what do you think? And she's going to look at it differently because her life is different. Her priorities are different. So she's going to bring up points that I haven't thought of. And that's a lot of what a coach does. A coach should not be the person who tells you what to do. They should be the person who helps you think about things in a different way, helps you see other alternatives, and takes your idea from A to C instead of just going from A to B. So they're going to accelerate that excellence process for you a bit. So any idea, and I think every individual is kind of limited to their own knowledge. Nobody knows everything. So the more people you can have involved in that process, particularly people who are invested in seeing you succeed, the better your end result will be.
Yeah, and I think even, outside of a coach and your network, doing market research, right, and really talking to potential customers is so important, because you're like, this is a great idea, and then your mama is like, this is a great idea, and your friends are like, this is amazing, and so even if you go to your coach or your advisor and they're like, it's a great idea, but if they're not your target audience, if they're not the ones that's going to buy from you, you have to have that perspective of the person who's going to actually go in their wallet and spend money with you. And I think it's also so important to build a team of folks that are not going to tell you it's great, right? So my boyfriend is the complete opposite of me, right? So I am like, oh, whatever I feel like doing today, I'm very much
go with the flow.
Go with a free spirit. I'll get up at 11 if I feel like it. I'll do whatever. And he's like, you got to be up by 9 because I need to be back home by 2 because I would like to do this.
Exactly, and have it all.
And he's very much also a numbers and data driven person. When I'm a feeler and a lover, right? Exactly. And so having him. And I go to him, and he shut down just about everything. He challenges everything.
And that's what you want.
I need that challenge. And at first, I used to get upset about it, right? Because you just think it's my business, it's my baby, and you think all this stuff. And then to have someone be like, nah, I don't think,
You need someone who will tell you your baby's ugly when your baby is ugly. And that's what it really comes down to, because your business is your baby. And just like a parent, I see things that my daughter or my niece do, and I think, this is the best thing ever. And I'll never forget, my daughter sang a song once, and I played it for someone, and they're like, oh, that was a little pitchy. My first thought was, you idiot, now I gotta, but it was. And she did voice lessons, and now she sounds amazing. I needed that feedback from someone who wasn't as personally attached to it. And it's the same with your business. You need the person who's going to say, this probably isn't your best idea. And you're going to spend all this time and money, and you're not going to get anything out of it. That really is your best friend. Whoever is that most honest person who tells you the thing that at first makes you say, wait a minute, how dare you? That's who you want to run everything by, because they're going to save you money.
It's hard as an entrepreneur to hear that feedback sometimes. I mean, your feelings get hurt, and you really have to have really tough skin, period. I mean, dealing with customers and dealing with advisors or coaches or friends or what have you, when you're asking for feedback, I think it's so important that you're willing to accept the negative feedback, right?
Don't ask the question unless you really want the answer.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
because
and
that's
we
important.
get so. I think at some point I was just like, I'm not telling him anything else. You know, like I'm just gonna keep it to myself because it hurt my feelings.
Right.
You know, but then it's like maybe he's right. Well, maybe I need to look at this from a different perspective.
Yes.
Right? We don't know everything, even though we think we do sometimes.
Right.
And I think honestly, I mean, I've had several businesses, and had I had someone years ago to challenge me versus just being like, that's a great idea,
Exactly.
go do it, you know, then I would be a lot further. But even with my current business, with Black Business Boom, someone did challenge me when I first had the idea 5-7 years ago. And I was like, never mind, I'm not going to do it. Instead of thinking a different way about how to go about doing it, they were like, somebody already did that and they failed. I don't know if you, and I'm like, they did fail. Maybe it is a bad idea. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Instead of saying, well, why did they fail? How can I do it differently?
Yes.
Right?
And as a coach, it's not my job to tell somebody you should do this business or you shouldn't. It's my job to really try and shed light on, again, like you said, the other ways of looking at it, shed light on the things that are their strengths and help them see, you know, you're saying you want to do X, but if you just turn slightly, it's going to open up a whole new market, or it's going to make you more accessible to your customers and things like that. I can only think of one time that I've said to someone, I just don't see this as a viable business, but that is my perspective. You know, even if I said that, it was with that disclaimer. But in general, most ideas are great ideas, and there's some products out there that I think all of us are surprised people are making money at. So I'm not going to say, no, you can't make money selling a $10 cup of coffee, because we all do it.
I saw a meme today that was like, 10 years ago, you were telling your kids, don't get in the car with strangers, right?
Yes.
Don't meet people on the internet. Now we're going on the internet meeting strangers to get in their car.
I got here with a ride share.
Exactly.
Like, that's what I do. I do this multiple times a week. I say hello to some stranger, please give me a ride to this destination.
Who never thought, right?
Right. So I'm not going to say there's a market for everything. You just have to figure out the most effective way to reach your customer.
Absolutely. And so I think one of the things I also see a lot is folks that want to establish their personal brand and really want to figure out how to monetize what it is that they love, or teach other people, or become coaches. And I see a lot of them doing that by way of becoming speakers. And so as a paid speaker, I think you can definitely speak to how folks are able to grow in that space and able to, if I just decided, I want to be a paid speaker, I think that would be good for my brand, getting out there and speaking to Black-owned businesses. What type of advice would you give me in establishing that?
First and foremost, know your stuff, because if not, the worst thing you can do is get on a stage in front of 1,000 people and 950 of them realize this person has no idea what they're actually talking about, because your speaking career will be one and done. And it's very difficult to come back from that reputation. So that's first and foremost. Make sure you actually know what you're talking about. But beyond that, I think you have to be able to find an effective way to deliver a message where people can easily receive it. Because the truth is, when you're on stage and you're speaking to a large audience, not everyone is going to have the opportunity to ask all the questions they want to ask. So you have to be able to use storytelling techniques. You have to be compelling and relatable and all of that, so they can understand what you're saying, knowing that every person in that audience is coming from a slightly different perspective. So you need the ability to kind of break things down to their common denominator and convey the same idea to 1,000 people, sometimes in 1,000 different ways, in a short amount of time. And I think that's where a lot of people sometimes get tripped up. Speakers tend to speak in the way they want to hear things, as opposed to the way their audience needs to receive it. So you have to be able to quickly discern, this person or this audience, this organization has this type of culture, so I need to deliver this message in this way. And then beyond that, just start recording yourself. Put content out there. Let people see your personality, because there are a million people who know the same things that I know. The difference is in how I deliver them. So you have to sort of figure out what your brand and your delivery style is, and then stick to it, because that's what's going to distinguish you from Sally, John, and Jane, who are all, talking about the same topic.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's fantastic. And I know you do work with TEDx.
Yes.
For women?
I do, yes. So TEDx Nashville, most people are familiar with TED. And as a speaker, that's one of those kind of quintessential moments. Everybody wants to be on the TED stage. And I remember when I gave my TED talk and TEDx talk, and it was amazing. And that's when I, walked away and said, okay, now I'm this legitimate speaker. And now I am very, very fortunate to be a part of the TEDx Nashville Speakers Committee, where we are selecting speakers and making sure that we have a very diverse group on that stage. And that's a lot of what I really try and do, is to make sure that the TEDx Nashville stage represents the Nashville community. And that we have every walk of life, every industry, every type of person represented. So we have TEDx Women's, which is coming up in December. We have some phenomenal speakers. We have one person who I actually recommended, who's from Nashville, born and raised here. She is now working with Oak Ridge Labs and helped discover a new element that's been added to the periodic table.
Oh, geez.
So yes, she is Major Clarice Phelps. She is a Black woman. She graduated from Martin Luther King and has a fascinating story that she's going to tell on the TEDx stage. And there's so many other speakers. Lily Hansen, who's also from here in Nashville, who's done some really amazing things. But the TEDx, I think, stage, a lot of people have in their mind TED Talks are only for super geeky people who are into science, and that's not the case.
No.
There's every topic you can imagine. So hopefully a lot of people will check that out. December 6th, we're gonna go with 5th. Okay, thank you.
It might be.
It's first week of December.
Exactly.
You know what? Google it.
And if you're not already, follow Black Business Boom on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll make sure that I put the information out there.
Perfect.
So, and then how can folks get in touch with you if they want more information?
So you can go to my website, which is Christie, Pruitt-Haynes.com. I am all over Facebook all the time. I am all over Danielle's group on Facebook. So, and you can also just email me, Christie at ChristiePruitt-Haynes.com. I am great on email. I'm honestly a little slow to return a phone call, I'll tell the truth.
Well,
but
kind of like all me today. She was I was like, ooh, I got to answer this time. This is the third time.
Yes.
So I understand. But I happen to be on the road, so I was like, it's a good time to catch me.
I'm working on that.
You're on the go,
Exactly.
So it's hard to just be available via telephone.
Yes.
So that's understandable. And then just like in closing, I want to ask if someone was interested in choosing a coach, what tips would you give them in choosing the right coach for them?
And choosing a coach is a lot like choosing a spouse. It really is. There are, when I was dating,
we struggle with that too.
Yes, exactly. That could be a whole other show. I remember when I was dating saying there are a lot of great guys out there. That doesn't mean they're great for me. And coaches are the same way. There are a lot of great coaches. Doesn't mean they're necessarily great for you. So think a little bit about what type of feedback you work best with. There are some coaches who only want to meet in person. There are some who do everything online. So think a little bit about that delivery method. Think about what areas you really need to focus on and find someone that's their strength. For example, if somebody needs a lot of technical advice, I may not be the best person for you because I am not the most tech savvy person out there. But if you want honest, straightforward strategy that is easily able to be implemented for a very low cost, then that's the kind of things that I can really help with. So have a list of what it is you really need help with and find someone who matches that. And then think about personality and make sure you're really in a place that you're ready to be coached. Because if not, you're just wasting your time and your money. So if someone's going to give you feedback and your initial thought is to just be defensive about everything, you're not ready. It's not time for a coach. So you have to be in that mindset of, okay, I actually want this honest feedback. I want this dialogue. I want this person to bounce ideas off of, because ultimately they're just as interested in your success as you are.
Fantastic. That is great. Being coachable is
Yes,
important when
it's
you're looking
essential.
for a coach, right?
Yes, it's essential.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
You are very
I'm
welcome.
over here learning stuff myself, right? So I really appreciate you, and I'm sure that everyone is going to love hearing all the tips that you gave us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you very much.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, this is Danielle from Black Business Boom, and you can find me online at Black Business Boom on Instagram and Facebook. Have a great day.